is Taley Hunt. I am in the Columbia, South Carolina area. I service Columbia and everything about an hour out. We have two military installations here, Fort Jackson and Shaw Air Force Base, and I work with a lot of military families that come in and out of the area. And then I would say the best way to connect with me or learn anything about me would be my Instagram, which is just my name, Taley Hunt. I think Instagram is down this morning, so maybe check it later
Facebook
on. But
too. Yes,
yeah,
Facebook was down too. We had to come in and reset everything. It was crazy, but whatever. So, well, thank you for sharing that. So, um, start by telling the folks, because again, I was so excited because I think you're a shining example of, you know what, you don't have to be in this business for 30 plus years like Steve, or 20 plus years like Kelly, or 30 plus years like me in order to succeed, because you're setting records and you're doing things that just haven't been done in this industry. Is it 3 years or are you entering your fourth now?
yes, so I'm at the beginning of my fourth year. Yep.
Okay. Okay. And tell the folks what you did last year, because I saw at the regional awards and I'm like, I hate that I wasn't there, right? But
Yeah.
I wasn't invited.
Yeah.
Why would I
Yeah.
have been there? Kenneth, I'd have been there had I been invited. So tell them what went down.
You sure would have.
I am right. I
Yeah.
would.
So last year I sold 145, 146 units, and my GCI was about 1.2 million. So I was considered a solo agent last year because all of that production was me. You know, I have admin, like a transaction coordinator, I have help, but that was all my personal production. So I ended up being the #1 agent in the Carolinas region on a solo level. But it was interesting because even the top team in the Carolinas region had done 133 units. So it was pretty cool to see that even if I had been labeled as a team, I still would have been #1. It was cool.
Yeah, I was so excited because, you know, in meeting you at Gary's, top agent mastermind, and it's so funny because in that room, you you were sitting behind me, and it was almost like you were so quiet, you so demure, right? You shrank in that audience, and I'm sitting here going, she's one of the biggest rock stars in this room, and yet I think you just didn't realize and didn't know it at the time. I think you know it
Mhm.
now. I think you know it now. So
You know, and I feel like there are different definitions too. You know, I feel like I've done a lot in the last few years and it's, admirable, but I feel like there's also a lot to say about somebody who has been able to sustain a career in real estate over 30 years too. And so I just always appreciate the opportunity to not be the best person in the room because then you're learning from people who are around you. I would rather not be #1 in the room every time. I would rather be around people who are going to bring me up the ladder, and so I think that was the first time I'd ever been in the top 100 room, and it was just awesome to be there, and you feel very humbled by the opportunity.
100%. Well, I can't wait to see you at the next gathering. So, um, tell me about the organization, because I see the promotions on Facebook and Instagram that you're creating, because I think man or woman, you can get so much benefit out of that. So tell us about it briefly.
Do you mean like the stuff I teach?
No, well, no, it's a group you
Yes,
started. Is it Mom something?
yes,
Mom,
yes.
that one.
Yep. So in October, at the end of October of 2023, I decided to start a coaching program for moms in real estate, and it's called Momward Real Estate Mastery. We move moms forward in their business. And we meet every single Friday at 11:30 on a Zoom call, and we have a private Facebook group. And there are usually about an average of 150 women who are in that. And it's pretty powerful because, it's not just me teaching, but I bring in guests to teach as well. And because they have that private Facebook group, they get to interact. So what I get to see is a lot of people getting in there and saying, I have a referral for this city or state. And so everybody's kind of growing each other's businesses at that point. And that was the first thing that I did to really start that leg of my career, which is, pouring into other agents. And I really like it, especially because, that particular thing is for moms. And my story is that I moved to a new state, and that's when I started my career. And I found out that I was pregnant on the day of my real estate exam. So I spent my entire first year as a military spouse whose husband was gone every single day for 12 hours a day with a newborn, trying to sell real estate. And I ended up selling 28 houses that year, which is cool.
Absolutely. Wow. Well, that's what I wanted you to touch on because and I was about to call it something different. I'm glad you clarified that. So Momward, I think it's such a unique platform that I the success of it already is tremendous. So keep doing the damn thing. Again, I cannot tell you how honored and proud I am, one, to know you and to have you on, and again to call you a friend. Like I said, next time we have to chop it up over the meal. So give us something that because again, now because of your success, clearly you're in these groups, you get to present, you're on stage. So and I was racking my brain to come up with something that that you're not typically asked. Give me something that that most don't know about you. How about that?
So my husband and I are from a little town in North Carolina. We are from Robeson County, North Carolina, which is the poorest county in the state. And we grew up in that area. We are both Native American from the Lumbee tribe. And so we grew up in a totally different environment than I would say that we live in now in terms of like socioeconomic status and just all the things. Whenever I decided to become a real estate agent, I had never thought about it before. I used to work in higher education after I finished up with my master's in business. And because the military gave us orders to Fort Jackson, we moved. And at the time, the pandemic was happening. So me working for higher education for the state kind of compromised my livelihood because state budgets were frozen because of the pandemic. So someone said, you should get your real estate license. And, I had no idea what that even, just had no idea. I did not grow up bad off by any means. We were a middle class family. But I grew up in an area where to us it was very normal, but just a lot of poverty and drugs and even in the midst of that, there was this UNC system university right in the middle of our town. So it was kind of a good mix. So I never thought about real estate. It never even crossed my mind. And I never thought about wealth or what that even meant. And so switching from living in a small town where money doesn't even really cross your mind, and I was making 40 grand a year and I was fine with that. That was enough, to moving to a new state and realizing, oh my God, I just made six figures in my first year in the business, to 3 years later making seven figures, and having come from a background where if you made six figures, you were rich. Like if in my small town, if you made $75,000 a year, it was like, she makes good money, And so I think for me, real estate has been an all-encompassing journey of not just helping people sell houses or winning awards, but it has 100% shifted my point of view, my worldview, and it has changed my life. I would have never, ever dreamed this big if it wasn't for becoming a real estate agent and working hard in the business.
100%. And I think that, I mean, we've already touched on it, and everybody on this call knows I almost touch on it every time. I mean, we have the opportunity to soar with eagles, and there are nothing but eagles on this call. And I love the fact that we lift each other to higher and higher levels. You're doing that. And again, money is good for the opportunities that it can create. Because again, I know you're not hoarding it at all,
Right.
right? You're sharing the wealth, you're sharing the knowledge and the experience. And I'm just so happy for that. So tell us, where does, for an agent who's been in it 3 years, going into 4, right? Where does, your lead gen, is it mostly military? Because I think folks want to know that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do inadvertently work with a lot of military because I feel like your lead generation should be authentic to you, right? And as a military spouse, I end up running in circles with people who are. So it just kind of does end up being that. But I would say that the activities that I do to lead generate or that I've built my business on can be done with any market or any niche. So because I started in a time where, we just moved, there was a pandemic, I was pregnant. I was not door knocking because I felt a little dangerous, and then, I didn't know how to cold call, nor did I want to. And I didn't know anyone at all except for my husband. So I just did what any other 25-year-old would do. And I got on Instagram and I got on Facebook and I just started to network with other people. And I got my very first deal from an agent referral. And so since then, I have closed over 100 agent referrals. For example, last year, I made $350,000 just from an agent referral, just GCI, just from agent referral. So my business has largely been built off of using social media to create relationships and network. And then I created this database. When I first started, I remember my productivity coach with KW and everybody else would say, just take all of your contacts and put them in your command, and then you just call them. And I thought, I'm not doing that because everybody is in North Carolina and I'm not going to call my friends who are still at the club, and now that I've moved, they don't want to buy a house with me. So instead, I decided to work to grow my database organically from socials and from networking. So that's what I did. And now my business has, I like to think of it as like a web that all runs together. I use social media to create relationships and to network. And then those people end up sending me business, whether it's a past client that sends me business because I stay in touch with them, or an agent that sends me business because we've created a relationship online. And that's where all of my business is coming from. I've built it all on this foundation of the internet, but I've maintained it by nurturing the relationships that I have now. And so it is not uncommon for me to get a random phone call in the middle of the week from an agent or a past client or anybody that says, hey, we'd like to work with you, or I have someone that wants to move there. Can you help them? So it's very, very organic, relationship based. And a lot of social media time has been spent over the last few years building a brand and networking to get people in my database so that I can nurture them.
You've done an amazing job with that. So what I heard is it started with the tech, and I would like to say it started with high tech, and then it developed into high touch, right?
Yes.
So thank you for sharing that. Let me ask you this, because we know that our fearless leader and CEO, his brand is black. Is yours pink? Is
Yes.
that your color?
Yeah, I have it in my hair. Recently,
Okay.
I got my hair pink, and then all of our listing signs are pink. I wear pink every day when I go and meet with clients and when I'm showing up online. And it has been that since almost the beginning. And it's kind of just, it has really been a brand. My clients will see things in the store or see things online when they're shopping, and they'll be like pink clothes or pink furniture, and they'll send it to me and say, oh my gosh, you need this. So it's kind of become a subconscious reminder of me.
That's something I love it. Again, I think it just shows how branding is so important, and it's okay for the mature people on this call, Christina, Steve, ESG, right? Latrice, it's okay. We can just, how about we can grow from where we're planted. We can start now, right? Because my success manager, Christina, who's on the call, she knows that one of our focuses now is, you know, I need to be more present from a social media standpoint. So I'm anxious to see how we can grow from that. And I look at you and I think you're a shining example that, one, you've got to be consistent. And I know
Yes.
you would speak to that for sure. Right.
Yeah, you have to be consistent. And I think that's where a lot of people mess up is they start and then
Right.
they don't see immediate, traction, and they get disappointed. I had someone message me on Instagram the other day, and she said, I'm frustrated because I've been posting on Instagram, but I don't see anything from it. And I said, well, how long have you been doing it? And she said, a month. And I said, that's not enough time. Yes, you can post videos, and yes, maybe they go viral or you meet people in a month. Like, that's not uncommon, but the relationships, it should not be, you have to think about everything in a multi-year plan, right? Like, it's not always immediate. And it is important to I just sent an email out to my database, my agent database this morning because Facebook and Instagram are down. And I said, this is why you don't just rely on one source of business. Yes, social media is awesome and it has been a catalyst for me, but that doesn't mean that it should be the only thing. Because if all of your business comes from one place, and that's true about Zillow or Realtor.com or OpCity or the team that you're on, and your team broker sends you a bunch of leads or whatever, like if all of your business is coming from one place, or the majority of all of your business is coming from one place, you are doing a disservice to your business. So you've got to use something as a tool to grow, but you cannot rely on it.
100%. I love that. So, and then you touched on your database. What does your database look like from a number standpoint?
Gosh, I have probably almost, in terms of real estate agents that are in my database who I talk to on a regular basis through email or whatever, I have probably about 3,500 of them. And that is something that I've just become intentional about growing in the last 6 months. And then for just people in my database, like past clients and people like that, I would say, I can pull it up. I have 1,300, and all of those, so none of them are like bulk paid lead sources. They're all past clients or warm leads that we've gotten, whether they panned out or not. And so to think about it, in the first 3 years of the business, I sold about 260 houses. And so let's just say each one of those houses is a couple, for example. So a bunch of those people are people that we've actually closed. Some of them are probably agents too, but I would say most of them are community members.
Well, and I think I'm glad that you're validating one of my pillars this year is to increase my agent to agent referrals. And so far year to date, I think that we're pacing toward that goal. And I think that, like you, we're very intentional about relationships. And I love seeing Cousin Mo on and Ken on because these are guys, they're not in our market center. And I think they know that they can trust me here. And I can trust them in San Antonio. I can trust them in Memphis. I've got a South Carolina contact that I know will deliver exceptional service in you. So I would suggest that we should all be intentional about those relationships because, like you, I mean, $300,000+. I mean, that's significant money.
100%. And so I need to update my little log that shows me everybody we have under contract and sold, where they came from. But for example, I have 43 people under contract or sold for the year so far. And as it's not 100% updated, as of right now, 15 of them have come from agent referrals. So probably more like 20, if I had to guess. So half of them are coming from agent referrals right now in my current business. 35% of what I closed last year was agent referrals. And all of that is social media and relationship based.
There it is.
We have one question.
Yes, what is that, Chris?
Consuelo was wondering, what is the best way to build the agent to agent referrals?
I actually just did a webinar on this. There's not one true best way, but I think that you should think about it like buyers and sellers. What do we always say to do to get buyers and sellers? To provide them value. And I think that a good example of it is how everybody walks around family reunion and passes their card out, and then they don't do anything after that. They just give somebody their card and they say, call me if you have a referral in South Carolina. That card is probably going in the trash somewhere. What are you doing to stay on top of people and to communicate with them on a regular basis? So it really is just about intentionally forming relationships with other agents so that you can provide value to them and be a part of their business virtually. A lot of times people stop at the introduction. A lot of times people reach out to someone and say, hey, I would love to be your go-to partner in whatever state they're in, but they don't do anything after that. They just send a message, and that is not enough. You have to stay in touch with people.
And I would
And
speak to
then,
that briefly, sorry, Chris, that I think that when you step into one of these events, that you should have a target and a goal. And I remember years ago at Mega Camp, it was always 50 plus for me. At Family Reunion, it was 100. Now I'm really even more intentional. And I think that this family reunion, Chris, I think it was maybe roughly 60 to 65, somewhere around there. But those were intentional. Those were real contacts. Those were real discussions, meetings, lunches, dinners, as opposed to just gathering cards. Because you and I both know, you at family reunion, you could gather 3, 4, 500 calls, but if you do nothing with those,
Doesn't
it's
matter.
better to have a limited number of really specific, targeted, meaningful conversations than to just gather cards. So I'm not about that at all, and I see you aren't either.
Yes. I
Sorry for
agree.
interrupting, Christina.
that's all good. Somebody was also wondering how your team is structured. You were saying that you were an individual. Are you still? How are you
Yeah.
structured?
So last year when I sold the 145, I was an individual agent and I had help, right? Like I had an administrative assistant, I had a transaction coordinator, and then someone who helps with showings because I'm buyer heavy. And this year, I hired a buyer's agent. And my husband, who is in the military, is no longer active duty and is in the reserves. So he serves as a director of operations for us. So I've hired a buyer's agent for this year, and together between her and I, we are at 50 units sold or pended for the year, where 43 are mine and 7 are hers. And she's also military affiliated. And then we still have somebody who helps with showings and an admin and a transaction coordinator. So we are very administrative heavy.
And buyer heavy, is there a goal or a focus to move more toward listings, or that just happens with your tenure in the business because you're so young?
Yeah, so my first year when I sold 28 houses, one of them was a seller. And then the next year I did 86 or 87 units, and I think 24 were sellers. And then last year I listed 40 properties out of the 140 something that I sold. And so this year, a goal of ours is to do more listings, but we've never done anything intentionally to get them. It's just always come from the same activities that we're doing. And I think we are up in our listings currently. I think right now, between what I have listed or sold and what I have in the pipeline, it's about 15 so far. So my goal is to list 50 properties this year and increase our count by 10. But I think that it will naturally occur because of all the buyers that we've closed. And we do a really good job about staying in touch with our past clients. So I think that turnover will just start to happen where these people who have bought with us will turn around and list with us.
100%.
Could I
For
just
sure.
ask a question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Those numbers are mind blowing for me. And I was just wondering, wow, I blanked. Hold on.
Well, and you're young, that happens.
Yeah, it just how where are they all coming from? I mean, that is so many. And do you consider your market, is it a hot market, or is it slow as everywhere else, and just somehow something about how you build your relationships, it just flows?
I don't know. There's not anybody else in my market that's doing this kind of production. I mean, there are teams, like there's a big team in my market that sold 100 more units than me last year. But again, like it's a big team. There are smaller teams that are, I mean, I don't know. We do have a lot of movement. I would say we have a university here, but I don't think any more than like the average market. Even, there you hear about markets when rates went up where they were still very hot markets and nothing changed. That was not our market. A lot of people in our market, their numbers were down last year because of the change in the market from 2022 to 2023. So a lot of people saw that decrease, whereas from year 1 to year 2 for me was triple. And then I went from 87 units to 146. So my business kind of did the opposite. I think the difference is that I am very proactive and I don't let up. You know, when I hear the market shift is happening, I don't pull away because I'm nervous about money. I double down so that we don't have to deal with the issues. And the breakdown of my business last year was 35% agent referrals, over 50% directly from my database, and then the rest was organically people finding me on social media. And then my business right now is double where it was last year this time. So I don't know what's going to happen this year.
You're going to break
Probably
more
a little-
records. That's it. You'll just continue to do it. And thank you for pouring into us. And I would suggest, and it's probably just for the ladies, but I'd love to chime in on Fridays at 11:30 on your Momward group. So
Well,
ladies,
Ben, why don't we get you on as a guest speaker?
rock on. There it is. I'd love it. So
Love that.
you and I, let's connect. So guys, and again, I don't want to occupy any more of your time. If you've got anything else, do share with us. And if not, then you got a lot of buyers and sellers to go help. So as we all do, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you guys' time. Again, I'm in the Columbia, South Carolina market. If I can ever help, I would be happy to. You know, my Instagram is where I share a ton of tips. So please feel free to follow me there. And I have a free masterclass that you can watch. So once Meta gets back up and running, just shoot me a DM. I can send it over to you. Whatever I can do to help, I'm happy to.